And our civilian leadership has failed our troops who have performed so magnificently. Indeed, when they come home, we can't even see fit to take care of them properly. I was struck by President Bush's response to a remark where he was asked, how is everybody sacrificing? In past wars, there was rationing. People were taxed to support the war, not passing it on to the next generation. So he was asked, how are people sacrificing? His response, well, they watch the war on TV at night. They watch the war on TV at night. Well, I think we've all seen the hurt in the faces of the families who have lost loved ones. But unless we all share their pain, we will never know the full depth of their grief. We have lost some of our best young men and women to that war. We have spent, or will spend, $532 billion by the end of fiscal 08, according to Mr. Bush's calculations. I suggest to you it's over $1 trillion. We have passed on debt for that war to our children and grandchildren. That's wrong. My pledge to the people of Minnesota is that when I'm in the Senate, I will never vote for war of choice. I will only vote for war when there is a clear and present danger to the United States, when it is the only choice, and I will make sure that we have sufficient force and equipment for those forces. So we need to make these investments, and we need to change the direction of this nation. These are investments in each other, in our children, and in our country. The dividends these investments will pay will drive our economy in the 21st century. I invite all Minnesotans to join with me on a journey to renew the American spirit and have our government reflect the values that we cherish. Together, let us renew America. So when the world looks for moral leadership, it looks to America. When the world looks for leadership in healthcare, let it look to America. When the world wonders how to conquer global warming, let it look to America. When the world looks for economic justice, where workers and companies are on equal footing, let it look to America. When the world looks for leadership to combat global terrorism, let it look to America. And when the world looks for the highest standard of education, let it look to America. And when the world looks to that nation that treats its soldiers and military families commensurate with their sacrifice, let it look to America. Together, I believe we can accomplish these things and provide for our citizens at home and restore America's prestige abroad. Americans, by their nature, are optimistic, creative, hardworking, fair, compassionate, generous, and spiritual. We deserve a government that reflects those values, our values. That was the dream of our founding fathers, and it is our dream today. Thank you all, and God bless you for being here. I guess for one or two questions we have to jump. Yes?
Just one or two.
Mr. Ciresi, how do you plan on separating yourself from Al Franken, who clearly has a very recognizable name?
Don't I have a recognizable name? I'm going to go throughout the state and talk to the people about who I am, what I've done, and why I believe I should be their senator. I think Al's going to do the same thing. And people will make a decision based on what we've done, not just what we've said. And I'm comfortable with where I've been and what I have to offer.
Mr. Ciresi, you mentioned Virginia Tech.
Yes, sir.
Does that prompt you to call for any new federal gun control proposals?
I think, Eric, that what it calls for is we should have mental health coverage. As you know, Paul Wellstone was a big believer and was a sponsor of that in Congress. Today, Jim Ramstad is a co-sponsor of the bill for mental health. What I've seen come out over the last day and a half about the individual who committed that massacre speaks to me about the need for mental health coverage in this country.
Waiting period.
One last
how long the
question.
waiting-
From where?
Waiting
The
periods,
waiting period, any other special
extending the
calculation?
ban on semi-automatic.
I saw very little on the dealer who sold him the gun, but what I saw was that they complied with each and every requirement of the Virginia law. That's all I know. That his background was clear. They did the background check, and the law worked. The problem was we had somebody who had some severe mental problems who wasn't able, apparently, to get the type of care and treatment that he needed. Yes.
The Republicans have put out a statement saying that Mike Ciresi is a liberal, and I'm quoting here obviously, like Al Franken, he believes the best solution to every problem lies in the pocketbook of hardworking Minnesotans, suggesting that you would just raise taxes, presumably. What's your response to that characterization?
Well, I'm probably the only candidate that I'm aware of that actually has been in the marketplace creating jobs for people and making sure people had good incomes, health care, pensions. I know what it is for small business people to make a living. I'm not just a tax and spend person, as they like to paint me, but I'll say this. People who have taxed and spent, in my judgment, are a lot better than those who spend and don't tax and pass debt on to the next generations of Americans. I don't believe that that's the proper way to go.
Mr. Ciresi, how do you plan on keeping up with Al Franken's fundraiser?
We've got to go, but this is the last question. This is last question. This is the last question. Al's done a pretty good job in the first quarter. We have a broad network of people within the state of Minnesota. I think he raised about 24% of his money in Minnesota. We'll raise a lot of funds in Minnesota, and we can also raise funds across the nation. We also have a broad network. I've been out there for 35 years across the nation, and that's it. We got to run. Thanks, folks. The endorsement process stays the same as it is. The legislature doesn't change. My intention is to abide by it. Thanks.